there was supposed to be a movie. It's with Sam Raimi. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
what are your thoughts about like that movie in general?
It was great, and it was all Neil's writing, but it was never going to be a great film.
It feels like a dream from me to talk to you because I'm seeing you for the first time. Like I'm able to talk to you about a game that I first of all is my favorite game. To see now Last of Us, not only people have enjoyed it, but now they are watching it on a show which has been like it's like a everybody's seeing it. Like the first episode got 4.7 million views, and then every single episode kept on growing, and now like I think the fourth episode stats at least it was 7.5 million people who watched it. We don't
Well,
know about
that's just in the United States,
that's just in the
and
United States.
that's just on the night of the premiere. I think that in the States, they're seeing 20 to 22 million people see the episodes each week, which is absolutely insane.
It is insane. I am so happy that a lot of people in here in India they're able to watch. They're watching the show, and that they cannot wait to tune in every single Sunday or Monday here. So they cannot wait to tune in, and they're tuning in. They're enjoying it so much, and I'm happy to have some people who have never played the game. They're also watching it, and they're like their minds are being blown away that this was in a video game, and I'm like, yes.
Yes, now they know what we're talking about. Yeah, it's amazing to see I mean, it's just a story that is so simple and important in terms of like the mythology of the way that we all look at the world and the way it translated into the game and had an emotional impact on people.
Yeah.
It's doing the exact same thing and causing all the same kind of wonderful controversies in the world. It's really, really great.
That's amazing. Like when the show was announced, what was your initial thought? Like, okay, there's a show happening. Where were you at that point in time when the show was kind of announced?
I think that I was in Canada working. And I just recently watched Chernobyl, which is
Yeah.
incredible and powerful television. Actually, I may have been in LA. I may have been in LA. But regardless, I had binged Chernobyl and it had given me incredible nightmares, and I was blown away by how good it was. So when they made the initial announcement that Craig was doing it with Neil, I knew that it was going to be a match made in heaven. That just texturally and storytelling wise, that those two guys together were going to make an incredible team. And I was right.
Oh man, everybody was like initially when I thought like when the show was announced, and then everybody always talks about how video game live action adaptations are not so well done whenever they come out, and I was like a little bit obviously I was skeptical, like what if it's gonna be the same way? But I knew that Craig Mazin is there. I'm like, yeah, he has done such a great work at Chernobyl. Neil Druckmann is directly involved, and I had like hopes. And when the first episode came out, I was like, man, I think they nailed the very first episode. I think they're gonna nail the next episodes. But before the show actually came out, there was like a point in time when there was supposed to be a movie with Sam Raimi, uh,
Yeah.
which did not happen. Which I mean, what are your thoughts about like that movie in general?
I was at the table read of that script. It was a very super secret thing on the Sony lot a long time ago at this point, and I came in and I read Tommy,
Oh wow.
and it was great. And it was all Neil's writing, but it was never going to be a great film.
Hmm.
It just there was no way for the audience to take the journey and fall in love with these complex characters in the course of 2 hours.
Yeah.
And to be, for it to have this satisfying ending that the first game has. So I'm glad it didn't happen. And I know that Neil was he was kind of like just taking things as they came at that moment. Like, well, they want to option it and it's under Sony's banner. So Sam Raimi's a great director. Maybe we can make this happen. But we're all really, really lucky that that movie never got made.
Gosh, that sounds so bad, but it's I mean it's like it's good that it didn't happen because there's no way in hell that as I said, like you cannot show the whole story of Joel and Ellie, and there's so many other characters that gets involved. It cannot happen in under 2 hours. It's not possible to feel the same emotions. It would be again another live action video game adaptation done wrong. So it's great that it didn't happen, and I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult to imagine a video game becoming a film successfully, even
Yeah.
the best video games. Um, because if you don't have the story as the core,
Mm.
which really is the core of The Last of Us, like
Yeah.
the emotional journey is at the heart of every choice that you make, at the heart of every moment, the relationship between Joel and Ellie and how that changes in game two. Um, it's the driving force.
Mm.
And the game is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, even the PS3 version was incredible at the time.
Wow.
But what keeps it all held together, the glue is the story. And unless a game starts from a place of that kind of great story,
Mm.
uh, the translation is really hard to make to a medium that's where you're sitting back
Yeah.
as opposed to in it.
That's true.
I
It's
think that we're going to see a lot more games like The Last of Us with story at its core, because this is a success that's absolutely unparalleled.
yeah.
Like, it's crazy. So we can only hope that the games will get better, that will be more invested, that will be forced to, you know, you know, partake of stories that are more difficult and grounded and important for the world, because this thing is going to make a ton of money for the people at HBO.
That's true. That's true. And it's actually a lot of people are now seeing that okay, a game came out and became a show in HBO, and the next steps will be like we gotta make a game something like that. We have to make it so good as The Last of Us, and it's gonna give like motivation to make even more better games going forward, which I'm super excited for because there's so many games that I love and enjoy. Gabriel Luna played Tommy in the show, and what do you think about like Gabriel Luna and his performance? I know you've talked so much like amazing stuff, like you've gone on Twitter saying like he's done amazing. What are your like overall thoughts about like him playing Tommy in the show?
Well, when I first heard, I was like, who's Gabriel? And I Googled him and looked up some of his work, and he has all of the sort of intangibles that are important to Tommy. I mean, like, you have to be able to do the things that are related to Joel, and to have his edge, and to have his capacity for the darkness that's in him. But Tommy also has to have a lightness and a good heart to him that Joel does not have. And Gabriel has both aspects of that perfectly in his work prior. So the second that I saw his work as Tommy, I was like, I recognized it. I'm like, that's Tommy.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And he is an incredible just dude. He's such a good guy. He has such a good heart. He's so smart, so thoughtful, so talented, I'm humbled by the fact that he's playing a role that I got to start, and he's picked up like the baton and is going to sprint full speed with it. Yeah, it's great. Like the literal idea of like, I'm going to pass this baton on,
Yeah.
go win the gold medal, and off he goes. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
It is awesome, and I love everything about like how he has played Tommy so far. I know in the next episode we're gonna see Tommy again for this recording, and I'm super excited to see that part of Tommy. But you know, there was one moment in the show in the first episode when Tommy calls Joel that he's in jail, and it was a phone call conversation. And I swear to God, I thought, is that sounds so much like Jeffrey Pierce? Like it was like I was like, no way, is this him saying those lines? I was like, this is so close, man. How is this happening? I
My
cannot believe.
daughter was at the screening, the HBO screening, and she elbows me and says, and whispers really loud, "Dad, he sounds exactly like you," which was great because Tommy's voice, Tommy's up here. Like Tommy is a little bit different than,
Yeah.
certainly different than what I did for Perry, and like he's got a sort of like really specific Austin, Texas vibe to him. And Gabriel's from Austin, and so he was able to sort of like
Yeah.
find that and use that to help him build the character, which is incredibly honorific. Like it's so cool.
It's amazing. I love that. But I love your role as well as Perry, who is like he is like that soldier. He's ready to follow orders, but at the same time he is like kind of hesitant in some ways. Like he wants things to be done right, but at the same time he does sees like, okay, this is kind of wrong, but I'm just still gonna follow the person, or like that kind of that's how I felt like he is going through. So what are your personal feelings of Perry as like as a character in this show?
Well, it was important to Craig and Neil that his military background be at the forefront of who he was. And so my sort of investigation, I played a lot of those guys. I've met a lot of those guys and worked with armorers and people with that background.
Yeah.
And the thing that they are all really good at is following orders. It doesn't mean that they're not going to sort of like, try to take initiative if they have to. But in order to fulfill that role, it's important that you be able to say yes.
Yeah.
And so just the idea that for him, he's been masterless for a long time. I like the idea of him being this sort of like Ronin samurai for a long time after the outbreak.
Yeah.
And then refinding a purpose with Michael and Kathleen and trying to serve them. And so with the loss of Michael, really turning all of that love and respect and appreciation over to Kathleen. And she got us this far. I'm going to trust her judgment and use the tools that I have to try to make it go the way she wants it to go.
Yeah.
And so that's his whole sort of, that ends up being the hill that he dies on.
Yeah.
Trying to save the woman he loves and distract the bloater from her so she can run and hold the line. And it's,
Cool.
What more could I possibly ask for?
That scene was like, oh my god! And when I first died in The Last of Us with the bloater, I know like he kind of tears it apart. I'm like, oh my god, he did it here, and I was like, he did it to Perry. Like, it's so crazy. Like that's like a great way to go out, I guess, by a bloater.
Yeah. I don't think anybody else over the course of however many seasons they go, I don't think anyone will get killed by a bloater like that. I can retire that death. Yeah, it's brutal in the game. I mean, we had to go in and do animations for that death. And those are like stressful days because you're doing like all kinds of different deaths. And that one, I remember seeing the first like animations for it, the first cinematics. I was like, what the f- are we doing? Like, just like all the tendons popping and the whole deal. Like, it's intense. And so it's good to get that death.
Man, I love that. Enjoyed. So I think everybody's reaction was like, oh my god, what did I see? But like the set has been designed so well. The creatures look so great and they're so true to the game and everything looks great. What was the kind of initial reaction when you got into the set, saw all of these things, saw the bloater for the first time? What was your reaction?
Well, we had been on the set for maybe a week or so before the infected showed up. We knew that all the stuntmen and women were training every day, rehearsing all of their stuff. But it was probably the second week of night shoots that was the first time that they were in the pit. And when they came out of that thing, it was as intense as watching the show. It was amazing. It's 75 people, all in prosthetics. It's 12 degrees. They're piled into the pit. The house behind them like is burning in flames. And they come running up and over and it just was everything as a child that you could want to imagine for a moment like that. So like it was incredible.
Jeez.
And the amount of sweat and blood put into that, what is 6 or 7, 8, 10 minute scene is unreal.
It is.
But it was necessary for sure.
It is unreal. I love that scene. I was waiting for a scene where the zombies just come on chasing. I wanted that blur scene. And when I saw it, I was like, yes. I was so, and it's so many. And I was so shocked to see so many just like crawling out and just going after everybody. Um, it
What I
was,
heard Craig on the podcast,
yeah,
Craig and Neil and Troy were talking about it, and the idea that uh, they had been forced underground and stayed underground, and that when you kick that ant nest,
yeah,
like all of these fire ants come pouring out.
pouring
Like,
out. Yeah,
I'm in Georgia, and you knock over like a fire ant nest, and they go insane. And so that's exactly what they pictured, and sort of the entire sort of backbone of conceptually for it
yeah.
was that, and it was great.
I would probably shoot my pants right there if I saw that. Like, oh my god. Probably will not move and be like, first zombie gets me. The first zombie
yeah,
comes in, I'm like dead. I would just
yeah,
be
yeah.
looking at the site like, oh my god.
No, you don't survive a moment like that. It just except by dumb luck.
Yeah, that's true. Um, but it's so incredible to see how crazy the people have been watching the Last of Us like show every single week. Lucky for us, like we got 2 episodes in 1 week, which is crazy, and there's so many more episodes coming up. But there's also like season 2 announced, like it's official, season 2 is coming.
Yeah.
What kind of, do you have any expectations from season 2? I know like Craig is there. I know it's gonna be great. Do you have any expectations? Like what can they do? What do you want to see from season 2?
I mean, I think that they're going to have to just keep going because there's so much story in the second game.
So much.
Um, and so, look, they're going to have to build. Do you think there are sets in the first season?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do Jackson again, top to bottom. You got to do Seattle,
Mm.
like all of
Oh,
Seattle. And you think about like like the bank vaults and but just the massive sort of like scope of riding the horse through downtown
yeah.
Seattle and that whole journey, and then Abby like going in the skyscrapers, like
Oh my God. Yes.
they think about what they have to do physically to accomplish that and do it well. It's going to be amazing. I think they could do 5 seasons, of 9 episodes for the second game. Uh,
That's true. Yeah.
but I think that I think they'll take the time and they'll spend the money to do it right, because the expectations are going to be, you better do it as well as you did the first season,
Yeah.
and the material is all there. So I have high expectations for what they're going to do.
That's amazing. But you going back a little bit, you Gabriel Luna did get to play Tommy. Did you ever apply for the role for Tommy, or were you ever had the chance to do that, or was it like you never wanted a role, or you wanted a different role in the show?
No, I I mean, for obvious reasons, I can't play Pedro Pascal's brother. um, and age wise, I knew that it was never going to be in the cards because he's got to go, like
Yeah.
20s to 40 at the sort of top end of his age. So I never had any expectation that that would be a thing. And I love that it's Pedro and Gabriel as these two, Latino leading men in what is currently like the hottest
Oh,
show on television.
yeah.
It's so good that that is just become something we don't even think about. People have stopped thinking about the fact that Pedro Pascal was born in Chile, which
Yeah.
is, what more could you ask for in terms of like the kind of way representation should be in the world? It just is. And everybody accepts it because that's Joel.
Yeah.
So I love that. And, if they had done the TV show 10 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, I want to play Tommy. But
Yeah.
I do not walk around with neurosis or a chip on my shoulder about jobs that I didn't get or that I'm not doing. Life is way too short for that.
That's true. That's true. Well, I know that The Last of Us Part Two was like a game that I just blew my mind so much. Like I got a PlayStation 4 on the year The Last of Us Part 2 came out, I watched The Last of Us so many times. I didn't play it, I watched it completely all the way. I remembered scenes, like I knew it so well. But I still, after buying a PlayStation 4, I still bought The Last of Us Remastered. I still played it throughout, and I got to the moments again and made me got all those feelings again. And I got to play Last of Us Part 2, and it was amazing. But there was a small portion of time which got me very annoyed, and it was not fun. It was the insane hatred that happened with The Last of Us Part 2 and
Yeah.
getting leaks and stuff. And it's still present till this day. Like, people still kind of hate that the aspect of story and stuff. And it's insane because I did just talk to some of the people like who have never played Last of Us Part 2, and ask them like, hey, would you wanna? And they're like, oh, didn't that game like was not done that well? I'm like, no, that's not the case. So, like, play the
Yeah.
goddamn game. Like, so
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what do you think about like the community like that has formed into this weird mix? That there's like a lot of positive, but there's a lot of negative as well.
I mean, look, I think that the sort of subversion of expectations was absolutely intentional on Neil's behalf as the writer. The idea that that leaked without context was, I think, the thing that was probably the most upsetting, because if you play the game within the context and it catches you by surprise, it is a brutal and horrible experience and unbelievable. But it sets the journey up that you're going to go on and find your redemption in not killing her.
Yeah.
And so I would say to anybody who's like, Last of Us was great, The Last of Us Part 2, I'll never play that game because I love Joel. You should play that game because you love Joel. Because the gameplay is amazing.
Yeah. Oh my
and
God.
The story is, yes, it's upsetting at every single turn. So yeah, like I would just say, look, I'm sure The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be on sale for PS4 pretty soon. Like, you can probably get it pretty inexpensively right now. Go and get it, because you will absolutely get your money's worth out of the journey. And it'll set you up to watch season 2 with a deeper understanding of the story, but also a deeper understanding of yourself. I mean, it's like, I think that the people who got upset about episode 3 and the sort of like things that the emotions that get triggered about two men falling in love and kissing, which is all they do. Like, it's not like graphic in nature. Like, it's not this massive, sexual romp. It's a mature love story about two people who find each other and fall in love and care for each other until the end. What could be more beautiful than that?
Exactly.
And that the sort of like the negative emotions that get stimulated by that for people we're not born feeling that way. Like, you inherit those things from culture, from the world, from religion. And that the only way to sort of deal with that is to see it portrayed in art beautifully, to understand that the things that it's making you feel are external as opposed to internal. And then maybe you can choose to change your point of view, because those two gay people want the same things everybody else wants. They want to be happy, they want love, and they want to be loved. And that is the journey for Ellie, because Ellie's a gay woman, and we see that like that's an important journey for people to take. And I love that this is what is possible in popular culture, that it can be culture, that it can be art, that it can make changes in the world. And so if you were scared of part 2, just dive in and take the ride, because that's the journey we're on as human beings, to come to terms with these things. So that we don't end up being The Last of Us.
Oh gosh, I don't want to end up being The Last of Us if that thing ever happens. I'm like, no, keeping good relationships with everyone, not killing anybody, that kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely. Very important.
Oh man. But with Last of Us Part 2, and the story ends with Ellie, and going her way, Abby going her way. And there's a lot of I don't know if you know anything, or maybe you probably don't, but I still wanted to know from you, like, is there anything about in the talks about Last of Us Part 3 ever happening? Or would you want to play Tommy again if another Last of Us part happens?
If that ever happens, and it may not, uh, Neil has been very clear that if they don't come up with the story that's important to tell, they're never going to do it.
Hmm.
Which, in this day and age, when money is like the king of everything, the courage and the sort of integrity that it takes to say, I don't care how much money there is in the world. I don't want to try to spend my time and the energy of all of these people that it would take to make that happen doing something that doesn't count.
Yeah.
So if he can't find the story to tell, it's not going to happen. And if he does, it'll happen. And if Tommy's in it, I'd love to play him. But you never know. I have to be okay with it no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, I do hope that it happens because I feel like the story is still incomplete in some ways, but I would love to see that.
It would be great, but it's also nice to be able to give the audience a story where they can sort of like imagine it out on their own.
I mean, yeah. I mean, a lot of people, including me, I've imagined like, okay, maybe this is how she must have gone, and all these imaginations play in it. And it happened in the Last of Us Part 1 as well when the game ended, and I thought like there will be no sequel. I thought like, of course, there's not going to be a sequel. It ended perfectly. This is what happened after that, of course. And then the Part 2 happened. Like, great. Part 2 happened. Now we have like lots of stories. I'm still in the same phase. Like, okay, this is what must have happened. She went on her own, blah blah blah. And like, but there are always rumors and stuff. So if it happens, I'm gonna be super excited if it ever happens.
Yeah, me too. But I wish we'll see. I hope so too, but you never know.
But yeah, but you never know. But I'm actually very much happy that people that never got to play Last of Us, because they don't have PlayStation, it's coming on PC finally, and people will get to play that. They have watched the show. It's like a perfect marketing for The Last of Us as well. They've watched the show,
Yeah, it's crazy.
and they're like, okay, the game came out. Buy it, play it, and they play the game, and they just fell in love with it. It's so incredible. But again, the incredible part is you joining in this particular episode. Thank you so much for talking to me about Last of Us, and the insane success that the show has happened, that came with, and the insane success that the game overall has had over so long. It's been like a decade, more than a decade. It's insane. Like,
Yeah.
crazy. And Last of Us still is relevant, and people still cry whenever the first moment of Joel and Sarah happens. It's like, I can't. Nobody can stop it. It happens every single time. I don't know how to stop it.
Yeah, I'm so proud of Craig and Neil for bringing it to life.
But again, thank you so much for giving your time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And it was really fun talking to you. I'm super excited to see what you do next. If there's any other video games that you would love to be a part of, I'd love to see that, where you land upon and what roles you play. It'll be super exciting.
Yeah, man. Here's hoping. There are a couple that are maybe on the horizon, but I can't talk about them.
Unfortunately.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, those NDAs need to not exist, but unfortunately it has to exist.
Cool, man. It's a pleasure, Abby.